have Amelia, who's going to talk about troubleshooting eResources for Alma and Primo using a combination of analytics and automated macros testing. Amelia's been the applications librarian at RMIT since mid-2015, a role that includes the administration of Alma and Primo. She's currently studying for her Masters, and to keep things RMIT, she's had roles in acquisitions and cataloguing, systems testings and metadata manipulation. So this experience has given Amelia an interest in the discoverability of resources, how metadata works to make material discoverable, and the discovery interface itself. So Amelia is co-presenting, investigating and implementing... No, you're not.
That's the developer's day.
Okay. Please welcome Amelia.
Thank you. I'm going to start by apologising. I've had a bit of a cold, so if I have to stop and have a sip of my Lemsip, advance apologies. Now, I know this is a long title for this presentation, and it does sum up what it is. And what I'm actually here to do is I'm going to show you some testing that I've been doing, and I do on a weekly basis now. And it uses a combination of an Alma Analytics report and some iMacros just to give me that final little touch to make sure I'm getting what I want. And I also wanted to just let people here know I'm not a programmer. I don't have a programming background, so this is not something that requires a particular IT skill set to do. So I thought it's something that anyone would be able to do. So throughout this presentation, I'm going to look at why I'm testing this, what the problem is that I'm looking at, how I've approached it. So it's a mix of analytics, macros. I'm going to hopefully show a bit of a demo if I can, because I've recorded a video of the macros running, and then share with you the results that I've gotten from that and what that's actually meant. So I'm going to start with a quick demo, if I can, of the problem. So I'm just going to go to our library website, and I'm going to run a search here. I really do need to make sure I find searches next time for demonstrations that are much easier to write. But I usually just copy and paste them from cases that I've already logged, so it's not always about making it easy. Okay, so we've got this resource, it shows as available. Doesn't matter if I'm logged in or not, the fact is it's showing as available. I select that. I go, okay, I want to see where that is. Oh, hang on a minute. No full text available. So this is the problem that we were encountering. Every now and then we'd get reports from users of this sort of thing happening. And whenever I would investigate them, I would find it's very rarely a single record that's affected. It's often all the records in that issue, or it's all the records in that title. And I was like, hang on a minute. Surely this is happening more often than what the users are reporting. So I had the assumption, so if I jump back to my slides, the assumption is that users are encountering this issue when attempting to access our eResources more often than they were reporting it to the library. So I wanted to find a way of finding these problems that the users weren't reporting. So I had a look at Alma Analytics as a way of doing this. And I went to the Link Resolver report. And this is the report that I generate now. And I'll quickly run through the different criteria that I've set up here, because there's actually quite a few different criteria here, and I thought it's probably a good idea to explain them. So request date, that's a pretty obvious one. I just want to look at the last week because I run this on a weekly basis. I look at the percentage of requests without service, and I'm looking at the ones where it's 100%. Every time someone requests this, it brings back no service. I'm looking at source type is Primo/Primo Central, because I'm interested in the resources people are requesting from that Primo interface. If it's the assumption, of course, there is if it's showing in our Primo interface, it's something we should have access to, because if it's outside of our holdings range, we're going to assume we it shouldn't be there. I've got a number of requests is greater than 3. That's just to keep the number of results that are returned from this report manageable. And then I've got sources not equal to, and that's a bit of a hard one to explain, but basically these are different sources that actually are linked to resource and don't send that uResolver request to Alma. So it's a direct link to the resource. So these are ones that I've culled over time, going, these ones actually don't need to be there because they're direct links, and that's not the purpose of this test. So over time, I've figured out which ones those were and excluded them from my report. The trick, of course, with this analytics report is that not everything that it brings back actually is no request, gives me that no full text available result. I could run this report and check the first, say, 10 in the results and say, oh, well, actually, it shows we've got access to that. So I don't know if that's that my understanding of percentage of requests without service is maybe it's a little bit incorrect, or maybe there's different things happening at different times, stopping it from working, but it worked for me the day I tested. So because the analytics report doesn't give me exactly what I want, I then have to do another step, which is to run a macros, so web browser, to actually test which of the lines in this report is actually giving me that no full text available. So this is just a quick example of what the report looks like. And I just thought I'd say that I tend to save the analytics report as an Excel, simply because I like to double check that there's no blank lines. Every now and then you might have a source, but there's nothing in the title or article fields. So anything that's blank in a field that I want to use for the macro, I want to make sure there's some data in that before I run it. So I put it into an Excel format, spend a couple of minutes doing any manual edits to make sure it won't kill my macro, and then I save it as a CSV format because that's what the macro wants. Mention that. Okay, so here's an example of what the macro looks like. Now, I chose to use iMacros on Firefox simply because I find them the easiest to use. I literally just there's a record button. Once you've downloaded the macros onto your browser, you just click record, do a few steps, it records all those steps, and then you click stop when you're done. And then I just manually went in and edited the macro to say, instead of just running with what I've given you, what you've copied me do, grab the source set, the information from the data source. So I just store that on my desktop each week. The other things I added in was just a couple of things to stop it bringing errors up, because if it brought up an error, it would stop the macro running at that point. So there's just a rule there to say, I'm not interested in any errors you might bring up at this point, ignore them. And then, of course, I've had to add the information to say extract. So you've got that extract column 4 and extract column 8. That's actually what I'm telling it to grab out of the CSV file. So that's my article title and the number of requests, because I want that information later on. The other thing it's extracting, and you can see I'll point to it, at line 15, and it's basing it on the position that it's sitting within the tab, but that's actually the full text available information. So if it does have full text, it's going to grab full text available at ProQuest, blah, 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 or it's going to grab that bit of text saying no full text available, and then it exports those as in a CSV format, and I've told it to export that into a tests folder that I keep on my desktop. The only drawback I have with this macro at the moment is that it exports each line individually. So each line that it tests, it exports as a separate CSV file. Not too big a problem because it only takes about a minute to open up your command prompt and say combine all CSV files. Now hopefully this will play. So this demo is a recording I did of running the macro, so you can have a bit of a look at see what it does. There's no music, I'm afraid. So it's entered the search. It's gone into the view online. And you can sort of see it's highlighted that full text available, and that will have extracted that and put it into the CSV file. Let's run the next one. And this one has no full text available. It'll grab that info, and it'll run the next one. So obviously to do this kind of testing, to actually find out which of these results from that link resolver report bring back 0 results, to manually do this would take a very long time. So I decided to use the macros to do it, and you can run it over an analytics report of hundreds of records, and it can sit in the background and take half an hour to do that, and then you can come back to it later in the day and look at the results. And it's just going to keep running, so I'll stop that there. So what kind of results do we get? Well, this is what the CSV file, once you combine all those individual ones, looks like. So it's not particularly interesting. You've got the availability in column A, you've got the article title in column B, and the number of requests in column C. It's not particularly fun to work with. So again, I convert it into an Excel format and make a few tweaks, which gives me this. So I give it just some column titles, availability, article title, number of requests. I filter out the no full text available, so that's why this one only has the no full text available on it. It's a quick filter with the Excel, and then I sort it by number of requests, because I don't always have the time to actually look at all of the problems that this finds, so I want to focus on those ones that are most requested. And then I add myself a little actions tab that lets me know what I've done with it. And that can actually be really handy if something comes up multiple weeks. You can go, oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure I recognise this one from last week. Go check your file from last week and go, oh, yep, I already reported this one to Excluders. So you don't even have to do too much checking, you just check your file from the previous week. Generally, I've managed to get my analytics report down to the point where it's exporting maybe about 100 lines. When I first started doing this testing, I was probably testing about 200. But with that refinement of removing the sources that are direct links, I've managed to bring the total number down. So I'd say about 40 to 50% of what I get out of that link resolver report actually, once I've run the macro, do come back with that no full text available response. Sorry, my notes shut themselves down. So what kind of results do we actually get? Like once you've actually got that results and you've got to look at them, what kind of problems do we get? So there's a few different things that actually cause problems that result in that no full text available. The easiest ones I find to fix are ones that are coming from Alma, where there's maybe some incorrect bibliographic data, in particular ISSNs, or maybe a record missing, for example, an EISSN, which the PCI record might only have the EISSN, so it's trying to use that for linking, and it's not finding a match. So simply adding the EISSN fixes that problem. We've had instances where our portfolio coverage data has been incorrect, so we've just had to just update that. So quick fixes like that can instantly fix the problem. So those are the kind of problems I like, because we can fix them ourselves, and it's really good to get that quick fix. We do have a lot of issues with incorrect metadata in the Primo Central Index. This is typical of incorrect ISSN metadata or missing ISSN metadata, incorrect titles, incorrect years, volumes and issues. Year, volume and issue is particularly problematic for supplementary material, because one vendor seems to index it as one thing and then another vendor indexes it as something else. And sometimes paginations can be a problem with those kinds of supplementary material. Some people carry on the pagination and some people give them their own pagination. So that incorrect and inconsistent metadata can be a problem, and obviously that we have to report to Excluders, and that takes longer to fix than the problems that happen in Alma. Every now and then we come across a problem that's actually caused by the Alma eResolver, and I've just put up an example there, which is a case that I've got open at the moment that's due to be fixed around August this year, is that some records that don't have an ISSN and are relying on the title for linking aren't working if there's an ampersand in the title. Excluders have given me an explanation of it, and it's a bit complicated, but it's got to do with how the eResolver and Alma and Primo, obviously as systems, convert that ampersand into various symbols, and how it is or isn't converting back when it sends that request. So that's why ampersands sometimes are a problem. The other thing I recently found out, which was a bit interesting to me, was that anything that's in an embargo period, so for example, if we don't have the latest 2 years of something, anything within that embargo period is actually displayed in your Primo instance with that availability status of like online access or is available. That's something we don't like, and I've actually put an idea on the Ideas Exchange that says if it's in our embargo period, can you please show it as not available? So if you like that idea, go onto the Ideas Exchange. But yeah, I think that embargo period does cause confusion for our users because they look at the brief results and say, oh, it says it's available, and then they click that record and then it says it's not available, and there isn't even a note on that to say it's not available because of an embargo period, so they don't know why. So they're the kind of problems that we get. So what kind of impact has this had since I started doing this testing? Because I've been doing this for about a year now. In the last year, so this is about a year I've been doing this testing, the number of cases that we've reported to Excluders has more than doubled. And if I break all those cases up, so I went into Salesforce and said, what kind of cases have we got? So other cases, that 48%, they're unrelated to this testing, but all the other cases I looked at were in some way related to the testing that I'd been doing. Of those, 6% were other issues to do with Primo, 14% related to the Alma link resolver, and 32%, so over half of the cases I log based on this testing relate to data in Primo Central. So Primo PC via Primo is Primo Central, so that is most probably incorrect data in Primo Central. So it looks like a majority of cases are the result of incorrect data. I did want to point out the limitations of this testing. This testing only checks for a single scenario, which is no full text available in that View It tab. Users have to have tried and failed to access the resource before it's going to show up in that Alma Analytics report, because that's how it gets percentage requests, 100%, percentage of requests without service. Automated tests are subject to breaking if the system changes. I have had to update my macros twice in the last year to make sure they keep working, and that's a mix of if there's a change or updates to the Firefox browser, which I'm using, or it could be updates to Primo that do that. And you may have noticed that the macros test in the demo, that was the old UI. RMIT, we have moved to the new UI. I just haven't bothered to re-record my macros yet, so I just run them in the old one for the moment, and while the old UI continues to be supported and continues to work, I probably won't bother re-recording those macros unless they break. And the main kicker with this is that manual intervention is still needed to find the cause of each problem. As I sort of tried to have the time to show you that some things are caused by problems in Alma, some are caused by incorrect data in Primo Central, and even if it is incorrect data, it's a good idea if you know what incorrect data to tell Excluders they need to fix. So while this test is a quick way of giving you a list of problems, you still need to have the time to address those problems. And I probably only address about half of the problems that I get in my report each week. I focus on things with 5 or more requests and focus my attention on those. Any questions?
Have you put your analytics report in the analytics so other people can use it?
I haven't yet, but I can, yeah.
And how much joy do you get from Excluders for fixing
I don't get much joy from them really, but when I first started doing this testing, about the second week in, I did get an email from Yaniv at Excluders saying, we've noticed the number of reports you're logging has increased, is everything okay? And my response was, yes, everything's fine, we've just found a new way to test things.
Just to mention one thing, the missing ISSN numbers from PCI records actually also will affect Leganto linking. We discovered that as well. So it has a bigger effect than just what you're saying as well.
Okay, would you please join in thanking Amelia for that excellent presentation? Thank you.